Hello everybody, welcome into another lesson. Today we are going to talk about solving percent problems by using what's called a percent proportion. So let me get started with the first example and I'll break it down and explain it to you. Okay, so we have here 72 is what percent of, what was that number? 160. Alright, so we have 72 is what percent of 160? Well, a way to do it, of course, one way is to take 72 in the numerator out of 160 in the denominator. You could do the division and get a decimal and convert that to a percent, but the percent proportion, what you'll do is your second ratio, you'll set it equal to a denominator out of 100, and then we don't know what the percent is, so we'll let x would equal the percent. So what you're going to do here, of course, you'll take your you do the cross multiplication. 72 times 100 is going to be 7,200. We will set that equal to 160 times x, which would be 160x. I'm going to switch these around because I like to have the variable on the left hand side. You'll have 160x equals 7,200. And now we just gotta divide both sides by 160 to get that x. So on the left hand side, the 160s cancel out. You're just left with x. That's equal to 7,200 divided by 160. Which, let's go ahead and put that in to the calculator. 7,200 divided by 160. I come up with 45. So the answer is that 72 is 45% of 160. Because what you'll have here, 72 out of 160 would be equal to 45 out of 100. So 45 out of 100 is 45%. 72 out of 60 comes to 45%. So what you're really doing here is you're going to take the numbers on the left hand side, you'll set it equal to some ratio out of 100, and the value you get for your percent, your x, that's the percent because it's out of 100. So I'm just today teaching one way of solving percent problems. And we're going to go over some more examples here. Okay. 17 is what percent of 85? Okay, so 17 is what percent of 85? So this tells you already that 17 is out of 85. You got 17 in your numerator, 85 in your denominator. So 17 is out of 85. We want to know what percent that is. So this, on the right hand side, it's always going to be out of 100 for your right hand side ratio of this proportion. We don't know what the percent is, so that's going to be x. Well, we can do the cross product here. 17 times 100 is going to be, well, 1,700. Then you have that equal to the cross product of 85 and x, which would just be 85x. I'm going to switch these around for simplicity's sake. We'll have 85x is equal to 1,700. Alright, so in order to get x by itself, we divide both sides by 85. Okay, well the left side 85's cancel out, you're left with x. That's equal to 1700 divided by 85. Let's now go ahead and figure that out. Well, I think I could do that mentally because that would end up being 20%. X would equal 20. So therefore, 17 is 20% of 85. That's what you would end up getting. So 17 is 20% of 85. All right. What percent of 145 is 52.2? So what percent of 145 is 52.2? Well, it tells you it's 52.2 out of 145. So you got 52.2 out of 145. What we don't know is the percent. So once again, the left-hand side is going to be that 52.2 out of 145. Your right-hand side is always going to be a denominator of 100. We don't know what the percent is, so let's pick x. Now we can go ahead and do the cross multiplication. 52.2 times 100, that's going to be 5,220. That'll be equal to the cross product of 145 and x. That'd be 145x. Which now I'm going to switch these around, of course, because I like the variable on the left-hand side. Okay, well, we want to solve for x. You got to divide both sides by 145. All right, well, left-hand side, 145 divided by 145, that goes to 1. You'll have x by itself. Now we just need to figure out 5,220 divided by 145. Looks like we come up with 36. So that x equals 36. So 36 out of 100, that's 36%. So 52.2 is 36% of 145. Let's see here. What percent of 36 is 19.8? Okay, so what percent of 36 is 19.8? So this tells you have 19.8 out of 36. Well, you're going to set that equal to the denominator of 100 because we want to find the percent. We don't know what the percent is, so that'll be, again, x out of 100. Now we just do the cross multiplication and we can solve. So 19.8 times 100, that's 1,980. That'd be equal to 36 times x, which is just simply 36x. I'm going to switch these around since they're equal. Put the variable on the left-hand side. I always find that easier. Okay, well, we got to divide both sides by 36 in order to get that x by itself. So 36 is cancel on the left-hand side. You're left with x. That's going to be equal to 1,980 divided by 36. Looks like 55. So we got x equal to 55, which 55 out of 100 is 55%. So that means 19.8 out of 36. So 19.8 is 55% of 36. That's what you would get. Okay, what do we got next? A little bit different of a problem. What is 44% of 175? Now, I could tell you in the next lesson we're going to do these percent problems in a much simpler way, but I do have to teach the percent proportion, so that's what we're doing today. Look for easier methods in the next lesson, but this lesson I got to teach it this way. So, what is 44% of 175? Well, this time we know on the right-hand side we have 44 out of 100. We actually know the percent. So 44% is, of course, 44 out of 100. What is 44% of 175? Well, this is out of 175. It tells you what your denominator is on the left-hand side. What we don't know is what number is 44% of 175. So we'll make that x. Okay, we don't know what number out of 175 is 44%. Well, we've set up our proportion here. We still, just like we would, we cross multiply. So x times 100, that's 100x. We'll set that equal to 175 times 44. Okay, so 100x equals, let's figure out what 175 times 44 is. That I have no idea, so I'm going to have to do in the calculator. Alright, 175 times 44, that is 7,700. So now we have to divide both sides by 100 to get x by itself. Okay, so on the left side, 100 divided by 100, that's 1. That leaves x by itself. Now we need to do 7,700 divided by 100. Well, that would just come to 77. So x is 77, so in this case, 77 is 44% of 175. That's the answer you get. 77 is 44% of 175. And I have another problem like it here. Okay. What is 84% of 150? So what is 84% of 150? Well, in this case, we know the right-hand ratio. 84% is simply 84 out of 100. They want to know what is 84% of 150. Well, this tells you on the left side the ratio is going to be out of 150. That much should be clear. It's out of 150. What's not clear is the number that's 84% of 150. So the numerator on the left side would be x, because we simply don't know what 84% of 150 is. So again, do your cross multiplication to solve this proportion. X times 100 is, well, that's 100x. That's going to be equal to 150 times 84. So then you'll have 100x is equal to whatever the result of 150 and 84 is when you multiply them, which I'm about to do right now. So 150 times 84, that's 12,600. You'll get 12,600 for your result. Well, we want to get x by itself, divide both sides by 100. Okay, left side 100 cancels out, you're just left with x. That's equal to the result of 12,600 divided by 100, which would end up being 126. So x equals 126, so the answer is 126 is 84% of 150. That's what you would get. The answer is 126. I'm spending some time on this today, and I honestly don't expect people to use this method a lot, but it's something that does have to be it does have to be taught. It is part of the pre-algebra curriculum. Alright. Did I not do that one? Yeah, I did do that. Find 65% of 440. Alright, so we got to find 65% of 440. Well, we know the right-hand side, the ratio is going to be 65 out of 100 because it's 65%, whatever this number is. 65% of 440, so it tells you on the left side your denominator is going to be 440 for that ratio. What we don't know is the number that's 65% of 440. That's what we don't know. Now, we got to do the cross multiplication again. X times 100, well, that's 100x. You'll set that equal to 440 times 65. Alright, so then you, of course, have 100x. Now I'm going to crunch in my calculator, what is 440 times 65? That I have no idea, to be honest with you. That's 28,600. So you would get 28,600. Okay, well, we have 100x equals 28,600. In order to get x by itself, we got to divide both sides by 100. Alright, well, the left side, the hundreds cancel out. You have x equal to the result of 28,600 divided by 100. Well, let's go ahead and do that real quick. You would get 286. So x would happen to equal 286. So it turns out 286 is going to be 65% of 440. That's the answer you would get. The percent proportion is nice, though, because you don't have to worry about getting some decimal answer and then converting that to a percent. It already works out what the percent is for you. You don't have to convert decimals then. But it's still probably not the best method to use. I got 5 more problems here. So find 83% of, what was that number? 200. Okay. Find 83% of 200. Well, we know again the right-hand ratio, because they give you the percentage, 83%, that's going to be 83 out of 100. That much we could figure out. 83 out of 100. Now, they want 83% of 200. That tells you that on the left-hand side, your denominator is out of 200. What we don't know is the number that's 83% of 200. So, we've set up our proportion now. We can go ahead and start solving this proportion. So, x times 100, that's 100x. You'll set that equal to 200 times 83, which would give you 100x. Now that's going to be equal to the result of 200 times 83. I have an idea what it is, but I'm just going to put it in my calculator. 16,600. So you get 16,600. Alright, well, we have 100x equals 16,600. We need to divide both sides by 100 to get the x. So let's go ahead and do that. 100 on the left-hand side cancels out. You're just left with x. That's equal to the result of 16,600 divided by 100. When we do that, you get 166. So x is equal to 166. That means that 166 is 83% of 200. That's what that means. So basically, again, you're just setting up the ratio on your right hand side is always out of 100. Always out of 100. That much should be clear. That much is easy. Alright, a little bit different again here. 36 is 72% of what number? Alright, so 36 is 72% of what number? Well, let's start with what we do know. We do know 72%, so on the right hand side your ratio is equal to 72 out of 100. That much should be abundantly clear. 72 out of 100 is 72%. Now this is different. 36 is 72% of what number? This time we know the numerator 36. What we don't know is what number it's out of. We don't happen to know the number it's out of. Because 36 is 72% of what number? We don't know what number it's out of. That's okay. We're going to solve this like we would any other proportion. You'll take your 36 times 100, which would be 3,600. That's going to be equal to x times 72, or simply 72x. I'm going to switch these around because I like to have the variable on the left. 72x equals 3,600. Now, all we have to do here, if we want to get x by itself, is divide both sides by 72. 72 on the left cancels out. You're left with x by itself. Alright, so now we have 3,600 divided by 72. Let's figure out what the heck that is. 3,600 divided by 72, that's 50. Alright, so x is 50. So it turns out 36 is 72% of 50. That's the answer. 36 would be 72% of 50. Three more problems. 27 is 90% of what number? Okay. 27 is 90% of what number? Well, what should be clear is it's 90%. So the ratio on the right hand side, 90%, that just simply means 90 out of 100. Okay? So that part's been established. The right hand side ratio is 90 out of 100. What isn't clear, 27 is 90% of what number? Well, we have 27 for the numerator. 27 is 90% of what number? We don't know what the number is, what number it's out of. So, but we've identified our proportion here. Now we can simply go through and do the cross product. So 27 times 100, well, that's just 2,700, 2,700. That equals x times 90, which would be 90x. I'm going to switch these around because I like the variable on the left-hand side. 90x equals 2,700. Alright, Well, in order to get x by itself, you have to divide both sides by 90. Well, 90 on the left side cancels out. You have x is equal to 2700 divided by 90. Well, that turns out it's 30. So the answer to what number it is, x, is 30. So it turns out 27 is 90% of 30. That would be the answer. I got two more. A little bit different wording, but the same idea. 80% of what number is 12? Okay, so 80% of what number is 12? Well, right away, 80% should jump out at us. 80%, that's equal to 80 out of 100. So your right-sided ratio would be 80 out of 100. That much should be clear. 80% of what number is 12? This is out of some number. We don't know what that number is. That's x, but it tells you that 80% of it is 12. So 12 out of some number is 80%. Well, we don't know what that number's out of, but still, we could solve the proportion and get the answer. So let's do 12 times 100. That's going to be 1200. That would be equal to x times 80, which would just be 80x. So let's switch these around here. You'll have 80x equals 1200. Alright, well, we want to get x by itself. We got to divide both sides by 80. Alright, so 80s cancel out. You'll have x equal to whatever 1200 divided by 80 is. So let's figure out what 1200 divided by 80 is. 15. Looks like x is 15. So the number it's out of is going to be 15. So 12 is 80% of 15. 80% of 15 is 12. That's how that could be read. And I got one more. Okay. %4 of what number is 15? So 4% of what number is 15? Well, right away we know the percent. 4%, that's 4 out of 100. We could set that up for our ratio on the right hand side. It's 4 out of 100. So we know the percent. Now, of what number is 15? We don't know what number it's out of. But we know 4% of that number is 15. So 15 would be your numerator. Okay. So now you've set up your proportion. You're going to solve it like you would any other proportion. You'll take 15 times 100, which would just be 1500. You'll set that equal to x times 4, which is 4x. So let's switch this around. 4x equals 1500. Well, we want to get x by itself, so we have to divide both sides by 4. 4's cancel out on the left. You're left with x. That's equal to 1500 divided by 4. I think is 375, but don't quote me. 375. Right, I was right. Okay, so The number it's out of is going to be 375. So 4% of 375 is 15. That's how that'd be read. So again, the percent proportion you're probably not going to use much, I'll be honest with you, but this is just one tool I can give you to solve percent problems. Is your percent always goes on the right hand side. The denominator is always 100. If it were something like 15 is what percent of 375, you would have 375 in your denominator here. You would have x where the numerator is for the percent ratio. And then you would solve the ratio for that percent, you would have gotten 4%. If, let's say, what number is 4% of 375, you would have had 375 in your denominator, you would have had an x in your numerator, then you would have still had 4 over 100 on the right hand side, because you would have had it out of 375 being 4%. Or if you solve like what we just did, 4% of what number is 15, then you would set it up like we just did and solve it like we just did. So this is one method. The next lesson, we're just going to use basic multiplication and division to solve percent problems, the way everyone's probably used to. So I hope everybody has a good day. Take care.